Welcome one, welcome all, for the very first time in a long time, back to Sunday League Virtual, 29 days after the checkered flag dropped at Interlagos, with Blue Bell Boys team BFX and Rito, his teammate, wrapping up the championship for Season 2. We have very different circumstances coming into this season 1 month later after the break. Lots of driver transfers, lots of movement, and a major regulation change. But first, we'll have a review of how it was last season. Your constructor standings, BBB Force X took the win by a very long way. Team Velocity ahead of WTech and KRT, who tied on points, only broken by the wins that WTech took compared to the lack of wins from KRT. BAR in 5th place in a very close 5th down to 10th, with SPM, ThunderX, SFR escaping relegation in the final race of the season. The 5th place from Vlado1, now renamed Vladinator. FVR and Phoenix Motorsports relegated and folded. The drivers' standings, Rito won, and it was first and second for BFX. Kubo, closest challenger and most races won last season, only 3rd place. We'll see how the drivers can do this time around. In terms of the upgrades, we can see in the bottom right, 2 upgrades per races this season should make a huge change. One big thing, BFX spending 40% bonus to try and get a speed upgrade, still failing it in the first round. The only successes were WTech with speed, KRT with turbo and speed, PRG with speed, and acceleration for SFR and FVR. How did the first qualifying session of the season go here in Sunday League Virtual? Have to find out. Sobel takes pole position by 200ths of a second over both Jake Brad and Spooner. Urist lines up 4th on the grid, the second road. Julo, debutant in the league, making his promotion from Challenger League Virtual, 5th place ahead of Goose in 6th. It's Hetmedica who takes 7th on the grid. A 5-7 for the Porsche Racing Group team, also brand new to the sport. Hetmedica, the only one remaining there, and Levioso, of course, taking control as the manager of the team from his driver role last season. Andres for WTech still, and it's Anti and Vladinator in the top 10 for Superfast Racing. Bluebell Boy in his first race for Team Velocity will start from 11th on the grid. Rito, his former teammate and champion last season, starts in 12th, and Kubo in 13th. The top 3 of last season's driver championship are starting all in the positions right outside the top 10, and sort of as it was last season, Bluebell and Rito relatively close, Kubo quite a long way off them. Gironi, 14th place. Hanandi, 15th for the Nuri Racing team, now in their white outfit. Grandi in 16th, accompanied by his teammate Pit Crew, takes 17th place on the grid. Amazing, brand new to the sport after finishing runner-up in Challenge League Virtual last season, 18th place for him. The Fuerza Rojas of Komikaze and Ikoloski will both start on the back row. Time to look at the first token spend of the season. Is it a high one? Is it a low one? It's relatively punchy. Rito and Sobel spending 1 and 3 tokens respectively. Those 3 tokens enough to put Sobel on pole. That 1 not enough for Rito to get in the top 10 in this qualifying session. Bluebell spending just 1, so he starts in 12th place or 11th place, I believe it was. Spooder takes 2 tokens, starts 3rd. And no tokens for the KRTs, a relatively good shift from Hanandi in particular, starting 15th without any tokens. Jake Brad spends 3, Urist spends 2, they line up 2nd and 4th on the grid in a very strong car. Hetmedica not spending any, still qualifying 7th, fantastic for him so far. Julo with 2 will start 5th, even better for his Sunday League Virtual debut. He might be able to take points on it. Neither THX are spending any tokens today. They start as seen in 16th and 17th position, Grandi ahead of his teammate. Vladinator spending 2 tokens, Anti spending 4, only on the 5th row of the grid, but they will be looking to make up some positions through the race. Remember, last season, the winners of the first 2 rounds both started from 8th on the grid, so it is possible to make up positions. Game on Goose, or as he is now, just Goose, I believe, spending 2 tokens today. He'll be starting in 6th place. His teammate Giruni not spending any, and neither are the Fuerza Rojas, starting 3 seconds off the pole time in last place. Since it's such a major regulation change too, I think it's about time that we actually see the levels of the cars. We have the strongest cars on the grid being the BAR and the WTEC at 3.5 and 3.3 in the index respectively. The only thing that BAR has over the blue outfit is one extra grip upgrade. That could come in crucial late in the race if we see Urus and Spuda fighting it out on 2 tokens each. BFX a 2.7, making themselves comfortably third fastest, but quite a long way off those front two at the moment. That failed speed upgrade just before this race really going to hurt them. Team Velocity 2.5, just behind BFX. They'd be happy to be that close to last season's Constructors Champions, less happy to be a whole 1 index behind the fastest car, I think, but still going to be looking quite competitive where they start spending out the tokens. Behind them we sort of have Porsche, who with a last minute speed upgrade right before testing yesterday managed to upgrade their car up to a 2.3, basically in no man's land. Well, sort of not, they're pretty close to Team Velocity in fairness, but quite a long way ahead of Superfast Racing, 1.8, the sort of head of the back pack. Behind them, ThunderX on 1.6, FVR and KRT, who with a speed upgrade also drew themselves level, not to mention the Turbo 2, with FVR 1.5 for each of them, and a long way off are the Fuerza Rojas with just 1 acceleration upgrade to their title. But that's enough of me talking. You've been waiting 29 days, over 4 weeks, for Sunday League Virtual Racing to get back. So here it is. Around Kyle Army, it's a wet start today. We're underway for Sunday League Virtual Season 3. Jake Brown immediately takes a narrow line into turn 1. Can Spuda get around the outside? It looks like he'll try to do just that. Sobel remains in the lead of the race. Urus right behind his teammate as they wind through the sunset corner. Urus just ahead of Jake as they slide through. Goose now gets through him as well. Can Julo perhaps try and move up the inside? He tries to duck underneath. Spuda goes for the race lead, and he is going to take it off Sobel on lap 1 here, down at the Crocodiles. Urus in third place. We had a little bit of scrapping in the background. Jake just getting bogged down in the lower part of the pack, of the front pack for the moment, as Urus tries to move up the inside on Sobel. Nothing quite doing there. Goose with a great start up to 4th place already. Clouds are coming soon. The track will be drying up. Jake all the way around the outside of Andres. That's lovely as they go through the chicanes. And Anti and Julo side by side there as well in the background. How great is it to have Sunday League Virtual back here again? Vladinator and Hetmenica. It's SFR versus PRG. The brand new team faces the team that have been given a new lease of life through staying up in Sunday League Virtual last season. Boy oh boy, will they be happy that they've done that. Jake Brad down into 7th place. He needs to get past Anti. Can he do so? Goose and Andres also fighting it up there as well. Sobel ahead. Urus and Spuda still leads the way. Sobel dropping from pole down to 3rd position. Goose and Jake Brad 5th and 6th. Jake making a double overtake in the earlier part of the lap. He's now up to 5th place. He's chasing down Andres for 4th, and look at the speed that he has coming through here. Can he try and move into Ingwe, the final corner of the lap? Will he go down the inside? No, he just stays tucked in, but he should get a nice drop of speed out through this corner, and he does move himself past Andres. Goes slightly deep, allows Andres to slightly cut back on the inside, but overall this is it for Jake. 4th place is his again, and he needs to start recovering back up. He had a good starting position, a terrible start itself as Sobel blasts past his teammate. Urus isn't completely out of this yet though. Remember, the BAR is the stronger car, not by a long way, but by a significant ish margin here. Spuda still in 1st place as it stands. Very strong car the WTEC is as they head into Crowthorne, the first corner of the lap here in Kyle Army. Jake Brown in 4th, Anti and Andres, Vladinator, Hetmenica. We've got a great scrap for the final points positions. Kubo not having a great time out here. The track nearly dry. We'll have to see how the AI can deal with wets on this drying track. Nobody came in for a set of slicks last lap, and it looks like for the leaders this will be very nicely timed as it just dries up, and Spuda, Sobel, Urus all able to slot into the pit lane. Vladinator struggling a little bit with those wets who are now thoroughly overheating. Goose ahead of Kubo as they file in 10th and 11th place. Grandi and Bluebell, Rito, Jaruni and Hanadi all coming in. The further back, Apple Amazing, Kamikaze and Pit Crew, who's fallen down into 19th position. Spuda out of the pits, he's on his softs. Sobel on the mediums, right behind him. It's Eurus, Jake Brad, and Anti in 5th place using 4 tokens today. We'll pop up the tokens once again as a little reminder to you. Going from highest spend to lowest spend, Anti on 4, Jake on 3, Sobel on 3. A lot of drivers on 2 as well. You've got Spuda, you've got Eurus, you've got Julo, and you've got Vlad and Goose as well. And just 1 token for Rito and Bluebell Boy, the former teammates and the still team owner of Rito's team, but interestingly enough, opting to drive for their direct rivals from last season. So take from that what you will. Take a look at the tyre strategy here. Spuda out on the softs, Eurus and Sobel and Jake Brad all on the mediums. They get into a scrap here. Sobel up the inside of Eurus, taking that position. Back off him, Jake getting his teammate too. Eurus doesn't want to battle him too much. Looks like he was going to let him go, but Jake goes deep into the final corner. Eurus will be fighting him again. This is the risk, having your team spend high in the opening round. You could find your teammates battling, and that's allowed Sobel to run away. Eurus once again compromising Jake. He has to take the outside line coming down through the sunset bend, and Anti is now up to the back of both of them on the soft compound tyre, a lot faster in a straight line. He gets a great exit out through Leo Kopp and up to the back of Eurus. He gets now, can he take 3rd place off him? Goes to the inside of the final corner. Always a tricky place to do it. Has to stamp on the brakes to not go into Eurus, and that's helped out Jake. Takes that position back. Anti-switchbacks at the apex. That's a lovely little overtaking maneuver. Spuda still holds the lead on lap 9 here. Anti up into 4th. Jake around the outside, potentially at the clubhouse bend. Can he go up the inside of the chicane? Yes, he can. That's a wonderful overtaking maneuver. Looking further down, Andre's running by himself. Julo also comfortably in the points with a vastly improved PRG right before obviously the testing session yesterday and the start of the season in general. They were sort of looking a bit lower midfield. They've closed in terms of development index right up to the back of VLO. So Vladinator now goes to the inside on Hermetica, both on the hards, both in real life former RBR drivers, and they won't be too much bad blood between these two. They love racing each other out on track, and Het will have another go at this, but it looks like we've got a scrap for the lead going on as well. Sobel to the outside of Spuda. Can he finally take the lead? Who will get the better exit down through here? WTech should have the speed advantage, but Sobel blasts past with a bit of boost, goes deep into the corner. Still though, Spuda right up to the back of him once more. The mediums might just starting to starting to be the crossover point in the tyre here. That's what I meant to say. And Spuda and Sobel will file through the hairpin. Spuda still in the lead. Jake Brad up to 3rd place now as Eurus and Anti keep themselves busy. Eurus on the medium, Anti on the soft. It looks like this has been a really nice tyre for Anti. He's made himself very competitive from a low start, but he does go into the pit lane right now, as does Spuda. Sobel inherits the race lead. Jake Brad is not going to let him keep that if he has any say in it on lap 12 here. Jake is chasing down the BFX driver, of course, who we failed to mention. His team got relegated last season, so this is an amazing redemption story for Sobel. The fact that he very, very nearly had to make the drop down with his team, who inevitably folded PMP, of course, now Gal Motorsports in CLV, but Sobel still going and attracted the interest of a lot of top teams. VLO, another one of them as well, but he did opt for BFX in the very end, and he's gone from the very worst car, the relegation car on the grid, right up to what was the very best car last season. However, might not be so much more still. So bit of a George Russell to Mercedes kind of story. He's going to hope that with that winning mentality ingrained in the team, of course, from Rito and Bluebell, who've been fighting for championships in both categories, both the teams and the drivers, they're going to be wanting to keep with their winning ways and build that car back up to a place where it will be able to win races. Jake Brad still out in the lead here. We'll have to see if the medium or the soft strategy prevails. It looks like it will be a BAR versus WTech battle here, because I haven't seen Sobel provide much of a challenge to Jake or Spuda. Speaking of, he comes filing through here as they bend through the S's. Spooner right up to the back of Sobel, closing in as they come through here, up through the cheaters. Can he make a move into the final corner? Rain on the way as Jake and Sobel both head in. Spooner stays out another lap. Jake and Sobel both get the wet tyres. Looks like everyone coming in will get the wet tyres. I don't think anyone that recently emerged from the pit lane pit crew was the first to come out, and that has completely screwed Spooner. Look at him drifting off into the gravel trap there. This has been terrible for him unless the rain just disappears, but Jake's already closed that gap. That was 4 seconds, now 3 seconds, 2.9 as Spooner crawls his way through the crocodiles. Clouds coming back. We might see him go for the intermediate tyre because the track will be drying out within the next few laps, but he will go for the wet here as Jake Brad forces his way through. Kamikaze, oh dear, I think he just got blocked off there, and look at him doing donuts in the final pit box. If there was any driver who'd start doing donuts in the middle of the race, I don't know how I guessed that it would probably be Kamikaze, but let's hope he doesn't provide too much of a threat to those around him. Such a shame, he was looking on to score points, big points in that Fuerza Roja, but it doesn't look like it today as he just tries to find his garage and he struggles just a little bit with that. We might find our first DNF since Korea last season with Hatmenica parking up by the stands. He's not doing anything of the like today, running very solidly in 9th position, but that has hurt Spooner. Jurist back throwing him now as well. It was just that move right when they were coming in. It would have played perfectly into his hands had they stopped 1 lap earlier, had the rain come 1 lap later, but it means that Spooner got very little time on those softs to make that undercut. This is a redemption race for him now. Remember, he is spending 2 tokens, Jake Brad is spending 3. Pretty similar cars, only the grip that BAR have over WTEC, and everyone is back into the pit lane. Jake on the mediums, Sobel is on the hards, and it looks like Comi has cleared up his issues, but a long way off the back of the field. Spooner and Eurus both on the mediums, Sobel the only one of the front 4 to take the hard tyre. Then we have those just coming in now. That's Andres and Vladinator, Julo and Hetmenica. Goose and Bluebell Boy will be the last driver to come in as Kamikaze unlaps himself from a certain lap. Bluebell finishing up lap 17 there. Comi only on lap 15 now, so 3 laps down, make that 2 laps down. Good job, Comi. Didn't realise the car was that slow. Jake looking in a commanding position to actually take a victory here now on lap 19 of 43. We're just starting to approach that midway mark in the race, and it's looking very, very nice for the BAR driver. Sobel could provide a challenge to him here. His goal will be to overcut and hope that the hard tyre strategy is the superior one. Spooner takes the medium, and Jurist on the medium as well. Anti should not be discounted. He would be upset, in all honesty, to finish 5th place with 4 tokens spent. Oh, voice crack. This race. But a solid result in what is not a fantastic car would be a huge plus. You have to wonder to a certain extent with how many upgrade chances there are this season. 24 for each team, 2 per race. You'd think there's some point where their car might be the fastest and drivers would just delay their tokens, wait that little bit extra and just deploy them when they know the time is right, because this car clearly isn't the fastest. Pull up the car development index once again. It's clearly not the fastest. It's a 1.8. The front running cars are up at 3.5 and 3.3. The upper midfield are at 2.7 and 2.5. If you're looking at SFR in that context, it's not going to be challenging for race wins that easily. 4 tokens is a lot to be spending, but then again, Jurist on 2, Spooner on 2, Sobel on 3, and Jake on 3. You've got a lot of the front running teams also spending their tokens. Had this been a race where BAR, BFX, and WTEC weren't spending that many tokens, you could probably see him getting on the podium, getting maybe a race win. Just not looking that like it today, though. He did, funnily enough, when they had a very good car at the end of Season 1, take the win in the finale. Just 2 tokens for that win. Also becoming the first driver in Sunday League Virtual history to win from off pole position. Interesting fact there, Jurist took his championship at that race, so he's got fond memories of this track. Jake Brad was also on the podium. So if we saw another repeat of an anti-Urist and Jake podium, I think that'd be pretty swell. Jake took his, of course, first points, let alone first podium, in Sunday League Virtual, and this will be a very nice moment. He comes up to lap the reigning champion Rito as they bend through the S's section. Laps Rito on lap 23 of 43. That's pretty incredible, and that shows the step back that BFX have taken to a step. The realization that Sobel, although he has closed the gap, is not quite in the powerful machinery that BFX had last season. They are firmly third fastest off these front two who are fighting it out, but Sobel looks to get a bit of a run here, and we have rain coming back once more. This is really interesting. This could shake things up. We always do love a good weather change here in Kyalami. We had a lot of rain over the last couple seasons. Interestingly enough, it's only been 36 days since we last raced in Kyalami, of course. No, it's been less than that. It's been something like 31. So about a month since we last raced in Kyalami, because it used to be the penultimate round of the season with the uninclusion of, or exclusion is probably the word, of Buenos Aires from the calendar, as we see sun coming back, but with some standing water already on the track as the last drivers just come into the pit lane. The AI, not a big fan of risking it usually. With the exclusion, of course, of Buenos Aires from the calendar, Kyalami has moved to the first slot, as it was occasionally in real life Formula 1. Of course, it has the record for being the earliest race in a calendar year on the 1st of January in 1968. So, have to see how these drivers could do. Maybe they'll be partying like it's 1968 after the race, but only if they get on the podium. Spuda looking for a podium. He's lapping old pal Rito, who is still down in 10th position. We'll have a look down the order as it stands. The top 5 as they are. Andrew's quite a long way, about half a lap behind as everyone starts to come in. Hanandi, the first driver to change his tyres. Vladinator running in 7th, not a performance to be underestimated. As it stands, he's doing pretty well for a man spending 2 tokens in a midfield car. Julo, another one of those, but in a slightly better car, will be hoping to get past Vladinator. In 8th place currently, Hetmanica, his teammate, 1 position behind, about to be lapped by Jake Brad. 9th place for him. Rito emerges from the pits. He is in 10th. It's Jake still out in the lead. Sobel 1 second, now 9/10 of a second behind him. Sobel just needs a good run there on the same compound of tyre, and maybe some could say that their chances, BFX and Sobel's chances, were written off a little too early into this race, because although he got swamped nearer the beginning, especially with the backmarker traffic Jake's getting now, this could be a real chance for Sobel. He closes up into turn 1, needs to get past Ikolowski, does now. That will be a much closer gap. 4/10 of a second, barely anything now. 1/10 of a second goes to the outside at the clubhouse bend, and he takes the lead of the race back. And Jake Brad's plan, with the fastest car on track, of spending these tokens early with his first race of the season, would be pretty disappointed not to actually take the race win. Sobel gets held up by Apple Amazing. Jake Brad zooms back past into turn 1, and he'll be very happy about that little bit of fortunate backmarker traffic from the man new to the league, running down in 18th position, holding up Sobel, the man who so often saw himself near the back of the grid, now at the front, but he needs to take this win. It'll be the 3rd of his career, but he goes up the inside of Jake Brad here through Mineshaft corner. And Jake right behind him as they come through. This will be a really good scrap. Sobel gets a poor exit. Jake Brad with the extra speed zooms down the straight, lifts off the boost, gets a nice run through turn 1. Sobel slightly faster, just has to take it slightly wider though, through Barbecue and the Sunset corner as well. Bit of dirty air there, but he's right up to the back of Jake. Can he try a move into Leo Cup? Jake back on the inside, but he can't quite wedge himself into the lead here. Lap 30 of 43 in Kyalami. We do have just over 13 laps of running left in this race, and nobody could tell you whether it's going to be Sobel with 2 tokens or Jake Brown with 3 who'll be able to win this race. Don't discount. Spooner, he's on the hards, he's taken the different tyre choice. He's only 1.2 seconds off Jake Brad now. Jake Brad with a poor start, a great recovery, and a pretty dominant mid-sector of the race might see it all fall to pieces before his very eyes if things don't go his way in the final 12 laps of the race. He's closed the gap to Sobel, 4 tenths between him and Sobel, 7 tenths between him and Spooner, right up to the back of Sobel. If he can get a good run through sector 1 here, right up to the back of Sobel as expected, looks to the outside. Can he go all the way around the outside? He can do it through Sunset, and he does take the lead back. This is phenomenal wheel-to-wheel action in the very first race of Sunday League Virtual Season 3. This is what we've been missing over the course of the last month, and this is what's come back. A team rising from the ashes, emerging from the midfield to the very front of the pack, and Jake Brad looks like he might be able to take a win in his career. He's never won a race in Sunday League Virtual. He stood on the podium, of course, in Kyalami in Season 1, in Turkey in Season 2, but never on the top step. Sobel in second, still, and Spooner in third, Eurist in fourth. He's pretty comfortable there, but Anti has been on his tail for most of the race. I think Anti would be much happier with a fourth place and the 2 extra points that gives you than a fifth here, and he has to chase down old rival Eurist. Remember them fighting for the lead here in Season 1. They're fighting for the best of the rest spot just outside the podium in Season 3. How have the gaps been doing out in the lead? Spooner getting a little bit of traffic. Anti's teammate have to do quite a lot of slowing to get him back into Anti's clutches. But talking of Anti's clutches, Eurist falls right into them, and Anti will get past through the S's on lap 34 here. Does get himself up into 4th position. Those hards working better, but everyone will still have one more stop most likely left to go. 8 laps left for the leaders to run here, and you have to see how that goes for them. Spooner closing in on Sobel, who's just dropped back off the back of Jake for the time being. He was really close. They were swapping positions lap on lap up until recently, but now as they head through Mineshaft, it looks like Spooner has got late race pace here. The mediums starting to go, the hards still doing well. Sobel should be coming in soon. Jake is in. He's not pulling, he's sort of pulling an undercut, but not really for position. This is more just in the hope they'll be able to extend that gap, not battle Sobel crucially, and won't have Sobel on probably a lap fresher tyres catch him at the end. The softs make a blast pass the back markers pretty comfortably there, and Spooner has to clear his teammate and Vladinator, and he's fallen right off the back of Sobel as well. Would be interesting to see some rain now, but that would be very, very unlucky for Jake if it were to come in the next 10 seconds or so. Spooner leaving it late to come into the pits, you have to say. I mean, for him it is lap 37 now, so unless he pits this lap, just a 1 lap overcut from the medium runners and takes 6 on the softs, you have to question what they're doing with strategy here, especially since Jake is now just 1 second behind and closing. This may be the final overtake for the lead of the race that we see here in the season opener of Sunday League Virtual 3. Potentially. Sobel looking a ways off now. We'll focus on the battle between Eurist and Anti when we have Spooner into the pits. Jake goes by and he will lead the 37th lap of the race. He just needs to keep it cool here. Spooner going through the pit lane will emerge ahead of those battling for 4th and 5th. This is his chance with 1 lap fresher tyres just to make hay with them. Eurist back up into 4th. These two have really been fighting it all race long, but Eurist gets a great run out through the first corner. Anti not so lucky, caught up behind the back of Kubo. Well-timed boost there. He's still got Hanandi between himself and Eurist. Looks like Sobel, though, has caught up to Jake and done that amazingly. He was seconds off. It wasn't tenths. It was seconds off. But he's back, and he might be able to win this. We'll have a scrap going all the way to the flag unless Sobel has used the very, very last of his pace just to close up to Jake. But you would have thought the undercut would get it for Jake. Jake has a huge moment. Slides right off at the sunset. And it might be Sobel who's riding off into the sunset if he can keep the lead of the race for 4 more laps. Jake right behind him still. He's not lost the back of him. Either one of these drivers could win this Grand Prix. Sobel spending 3 tokens today. Jake spending 3 as well. Sobel in the inferior BFX car, a statement almost foreign to Sunday League Virtual. As we look at the tokens, it is Sobel on 3, Jake on 3. It's a level playing field in that regard. The BFX, which has taken a hit in the general rankings, still strong, not quite where it once was. This brand new, plucky midfield emerging team who have spent so much of their tenure in Sunday League Virtual right at the back. Jake Brad scoring his first ever points here in his 8th race in the competition, and he might just see that win slipping from his grasp if Sobel can clutch a 3rd Grand Prix win of his Sunday League Virtual career. The gap is 8/10. Watch this space down to the checkered flag. Sobel stuck behind Grandy, still stuck behind Grandy. Grandy lets him go. Back markers will be crucial in deciding who gets the race win here. Can it be the first time for Jake? Can it be the 3rd time for Sobel? Amazing might get in his way once more here as they go through the final corner. He will just a little bit. The gap down to 6/10 now. 2 laps left. Jake will be desperate for a win here on 3 tokens to make that statement in the opening race that BAR are not messing around. But as the gap grows to 1.3 seconds, it looks ever the less likely. 1.4 now as we head through the final part of the lap. He needs an almighty end to this race to close up to the back of Sobel. It doesn't look like it'll happen, and Spooner, who pitted that 1 lap later, has tyres that are not to be underestimated as he comes out the final corner and across the line. This is the final lap of the season opener, the race we have waited a month to see in Sunday League Virtual Season 3. Sobel bends his way through the clubhouse bend for one final time. Jake has made up 7/10 over the course of the lap. He's right up to the back of Sobel, but as a poor exit through Leocop, he has just a few corners left to go. Sobel gets a poor exit. Jake is right behind him, but it won't quite be enough as Sobel crosses the line and by a matter of tenths will win the South African Grand Prix. Jake Brad finishes in 2nd place, and Spooner with a very well-deserved podium for WTech. Anti will take 4th, clutch it at the end there, and Eurus, who dropped back majorly in the final stint, only good enough for 5th place. These are your top 5. These are your racers, and they have put on quite a spectacle for us here today. Julo finishes out his final lap of the race, 1 lap down from the cars right ahead of him. On those hard tyres, he will come to take a very, very respectable 6th place, 8 points on his Sunday League Virtual debut. Andres and Vladinator battling to the line there. Andres and the WTech in 7th place, Vladinator only 8th in the SFR, and Rito tokenless today still will take points. 9th place for him, spending 2 tokens, only in 10th. Anti took the fastest lap of the race, but Sobel was the one who won by 3/4 of a second. Spooner on the podium, Anti, then Eurus, Julo, then Andres, Vladinator, Rito, and Goose right behind him in 10th place. Maybe slightly disappointed to be spending some tokens today and only taking home 1 point to benefit from here. Hetmanica not too far off, 11th place. He'll be slightly upset at no points, but to be honest, no tokens shows how good that car is that he can very nearly challenge in and around there. And Bluebell Boy, my oh my, spending 1 token today will not be pleased in the slightest with 12th place. And remember, he only finished outside the points on 1 occasion, I think it was last season, which is unbelievable in Monaco. Might have been another time too, but not a man used to finishing down in the double digits. Hanadi in 13th place for Nuri Racing Team. That's a very good comeback from where they were in pre-season testing, right in the dregs of the field. 14th place for Kubo as well, 15th for Pit Crew. 16th is Jaruni's and 17th for Grandy as well. 18th is Applamazings on his debut in the league. 19th for Ikoloski, a ways off, and Kamikaze with that let's call it a puncture earlier, took 20th place here in his debut in the league. That's all for Sunday League Virtual Season 3, Round 1. I really hope you've enjoyed this race. It has been a thriller from start to finish. New teams rise, new drivers at their new teams completely revolutionise the way that they're driving. So it's been really fantastic and I hope you've enjoyed it. But for now, see you for round 2 at Brest as it returns to that slot on the calendar. Bye bye.